particular execution was that you turned off the spend for a period of time after you closed out the campaign. That campaign continued to report conversions for like another month and a half, even though there was no spend in market.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny to watch that, last click conversions continue to come, even though there is not even impressions in market.
Yeah.
The reporting is somewhat cooked up. Okay, but now you land here, still not there yet for you, but
Yeah.
showing some green shoots. How are you taking this? What is this telling you? What could you do with this channel? How are you thinking that is part of your go-to-market?
Yeah. So let's talk about a few things. One is, historically, I have worked at other brands where we have been able to get CTV to work. And so once you've been down this path, you know that the initial test and the initial run, may not give you the break-even ROAS or the profitable ROAS that you're looking for, right? Like this is common for the starting point because you haven't really fine-tuned your tool set quite yet.
Right.
Second is, you have to find dollars to put to work because you got to grow the business to a certain level, right? And if I've divested some from Facebook, I need to find a new home for it. And you communicate this to a certain level to the executives and board members of like, hey, we're going into this new channel. And so you got to have a little bit of grit here, right? You got to have a little chutzpah to say like, hey, let's stick with this and to figure out what's going to happen here. And the lift in this case is promising, right? There is a lift. We're pretty close to it. And in this case, Madan and team came back and said, hey, look, we looked at the math here. There's a couple of things that you can do. You could increase the conversion rate, the cost per site visit can go down. And a way to do that is probably negotiate lower CPMs. These CPMs in our experience seem a lot higher than what we would anticipate. So we started peeling that onion. A bit. And so I would say that we went down 3 different paths of exploration to figure out how to make this advanced attribution ROAS improve to the 2.5, 3 that I'm looking for, right? So number 1 is I did a creative deep dive. And we looked at the control group versus the treatment group and said, hey, let's just make sure that we got kind of like the same creative running. And initially I was thinking maybe, there was over-indexation on a poor creative in the test and, something else. But when I actually dove into what I found was we had different creative in the control versus test. And in the control, we had a lot of promotional creative because we were cycling out old creative, putting in new, fresh creative for promotions that were coming up, and the test did not have that. So that's a big no-no, right? Like you want to make sure that you're keeping as many variables consistent as possible. So, we put into new processes on creative development. I also looked at the creative and said, hey, look, if I take my DRTV checklist, the 9 things that every DRTV ad should have, most of our creative we're getting maybe, 2 or 3 right at a time, but missing a lot of the core basic best practices. So I looked at that and said, I think that there's probably significant improvement when it comes to creative process and creative development. And so we've kicked off a new RFP to find agencies to develop that better creative. I think the second thing is we realized, the CPMs are slightly high because we're buying geographically targeted regionally to limit the test group. So we had created the synthetic geo, right, with Madan. But what we had failed to realize is when you limit buying to specific geos, the CPMs tend to get a little higher, right? And so we said, we should, in our advanced attribution ROAS, think about the fact of like a pro forma of like, okay, this would roll out nationally. What is the national CPM? What is the pro forma advanced attribution ROAS versus what the actual advanced attribution ROAS is, right? So understanding media buying dynamics and bidding dynamics was really important. I think the last was we really just wanted to make sure we understand where buying was happening, right? Because there's a lot of different platforms and there's a lot of different types of inventory out there. And Madan's team discovered that like there was a lot of banner ad impressions that were going in with this that probably were not incremental at all and really disrupting our view to understand impression and CPMs. And so, we spoke with our team, our media buying team, and we became a lot more prescriptive about where they could buy, what they couldn't buy, what type of targeting they were allowed to do, just to make sure that we were focusing on, at least in our experience, what would be the most effective types of impressions, of CTV impressions, right? So, looking at all those things, like we didn't come here and say, this didn't make it. It's not profitable. I guess this channel won't work. We went in and said, okay, we're getting a little closer. How then do we put another bet on the table?